You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy to welcome in the CEO for the Crimson and Cream Collective. This collective obviously has raised some eyebrows in a very positive way this week in the Sooner Nation, and we welcome in Jason Belzer. Happy to have you join us on the Locked On Sooners podcast, Jason. Take everybody through. I know we want to kind of share just sort of what your vision is for the Crimson and Cream Collective, but I'm just curious because there's an ambitious campaign going on. How has this week gone launching this thing?
Yeah, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the Sooner fans who may be listening. We launched Crimson and Cream about a month and a half ago, formally. It's been a 4 or 5 month process to get to this point. We started communications with the university in the spring, and our company, Student Athlete NIL, manages collectives around the country. The university wanted to have somebody come in and start something that was well operationalized and something that they can connect their donors, alumni to, that they felt really comfortable was going to be done in the right way. So we launched and are very well capitalized. We have a number of donors that have come in that have put in substantial dollars in. But the reality is, to be competitive in the name, image, and likeness space, particularly in the sport of football, this collective needs to raise a lot of money. And we've heard and know that Ohio State and Auburn and Tennessee and others are well over the $10 million mark. So we had a donor come to us over the last couple of weeks and say, hey, I would love to contribute, but I want to do it in a way that hopefully drives other people to want to be part of this. And so they agreed to do a match campaign, and they said, listen, if you guys can raise $1.5 million in subscribers, I will match that. And the reason why it's subscribers, and it's not just donations and not contributions, is because subscribers are paying for a product. When you sign up for Crimson and Cream for $25 a month, you are getting access to benefits, autograph signings, memorabilia. This is not just, putting money in the till at church. You're getting a product, and that product is, we are taking 90% of that money and turning it around and hiring student athletes to sign those autographs and to do that content and all of that. But more importantly, and this is what's important long-term for NIL, is that Sooner Nation and every other institution can't be dependent on large donors to come in and save the day. That's just not going to work. You can't go back to the same pockets, especially when the school has other initiatives. We all know that Oklahoma is trying to raise a lot of money in a lot of other places. But if we can build a sustainable collective, if we can get 10,000 people that are in that football stadium every Saturday to give us $25 a month, that's $3.5 million a year. That $3.5 million will guarantee that the football team can be competitive every year. And then you add in the donors, you add in all the business relationships that we're bringing to the table. Now we're at 6 million or 8 million. And all of a sudden you're rocking and rolling, and you're not even thinking about competing about anyone else. But the reality is that every single SEC program right now probably is in better shape from an NIL standpoint than the Sooners are. The good news is that we have a couple of years to fix that, but it means that the fan base has to get behind these collectives.
Jason, what makes this collective unique, right? Because there's other Oklahoma collectives that are out there. What makes the Crimson and Cream Collective unique in your mind?
Well, there's a couple of different things. One is that we support all sports. So any person right now can come in and give money to the collective. They can select the sport. So when you go to subscribe, you can pick the sport that you want. And in fact, we've had, I believe, 8 different sports that people have given to over the last 3 days, including, just as an example, golf. Like, somebody is supporting golf by a few $1,000s a year now, which is great, right? Like, let's go create opportunities for those student athletes. The second thing, and it's a little complex, but to try to decipher it in a simple way, for student athletes to be able to earn legitimate dollars, meaning high 5 figures into the 6 figures, that cannot run through just a 501c3 collective. So One Oklahoma, as an example, is a 501c3 collective they have to focus on completely charitable opportunities. In order for a student athlete to earn that money, they need to do it in a fair market value way. So if you go do an autograph signing for Ronald McDonald House and a volunteer opportunity, you're going to get paid $500 for that. But if Oklahoma wants to have a Heisman winning quarterback, he's going to want a lot more than $500 to go do an autograph signing somewhere, right? The only way that happens is through Crimson and Cream. Period. End of story. If we want to have Heisman winning quarterbacks at Oklahoma moving forward, Crimson and Cream is literally the only entity capable of making sure that that happens. And so from a support standpoint, that's why we want individuals to be part of this collective. And while I can't go into details, what I can say is that probably by the end of the year, I hope that Crimson and Cream is really the only entity that's out there. And we're in conversations to make sure that that happens. If we want to be competitive, we have to be under one roof. It's one Oklahoma, right? And that's the reality of what we're trying to get done.
Yeah, and just to take that just a little bit further, I know there's probably, like you said, a limited amount you can share there, but if you would just expound upon those thoughts, because on this podcast and several other platforms, that's been a message that I've passed along too, is it just makes sense to kind of have everything from a collective standpoint under one roof. So when you look at that, why in your mind, if and when that day comes at the University of Oklahoma, why would that be important for OU?
Well, the reality is that we're all on the same team, right? And so if I'm trying to attract a recruit to an institution, and for a coach can't go, Coach Venables or Coach Mosier can't go and tell a student athlete, if you come to Oklahoma, we're going to pay you $100,000. That's against the rules, and it's against the values of the institution. But what they can say is that our running back makes $50,000 from opportunities that Crimson and Cream generates for them. That's perfectly within the rules. But if there's 3 different collectives operating, how do we know how much each student athlete is making? And what I can tell you, and this is factual, is that we as a company provide full transparency to the university. So we don't just go work with student athletes and the university doesn't know what happened. Every contract that is signed is disclosed directly to the university. Not every collective does that. One Oklahoma doesn't. And it's nothing against them. Like that, they're a separate business, they're private, so they can do whatever they want. It's their prerogative. But that's a challenge, right? Because if they're doing deals, they're announcing student athletes, the university sees it, but they don't know what it is. And how does that benefit the university? Because they can't even use that in recruiting. They can't say, Susie signed this deal for $500 with one Oklahoma. So great, Susie's making money, but over the long run, it doesn't work, right? And so that's part of this process, is the disclosure. And while it may not happen immediately, what will end up happening probably within the next year or 2 across all sports, all schools, not just Oklahoma, is that more and more of these deals will come forward. And we will do that, right? We work with 7 Power 5 institutions. We have better data on market value than anyone out there. And so we have no problem. I have no problem telling you right now that the average men's basketball player on the Power 5 level for schools that are doing it well is making between $100,000 and $150,000 a year. It's a real number. And so that's what we need to get Coach Moser's team to. I need to be able to create a scenario in which, the starting players are being able to earn $100,000, $150,000, because that's what the market has dictated to be fair value for them. For football, it's more, right? We know that the good quarterback, a Heisman winning quarterback, it's $1 million a year quarterback. It just is, right? I mean, look what Bryce Young is making $1 million by himself at Alabama without the school, right? Like, he's got his endorsements, he's got his beats, he's got whatever going on. So that just tells you what needs to happen. And the school can be involved in it. And so they've essentially asked us to come in and create this ecosystem. But what they can do is support us to get the fans behind this so we can build this ecosystem.
Jason, it makes perfect sense to me, right? If you want Oklahoma to be successful, then you support the Crimson and Cream Collective. But I don't want to even say dissenters out there, but to Oklahoma fans that say, well, wait a second here, I'm a season ticket holder, I'm involved in donating for these facilities. What is your message to those individuals out there that don't fully understand maybe the value of the Crimson and Cream Collective and what it brings to OU?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different answers to that question. The first is that you don't have to contribute. No one's forcing you to. You're again, I don't like to use the word contribution. I'm correcting myself. You don't have to purchase our product. Just like you don't have to go eat at McDonald's, you can go eat at Chick-fil-A if you want. And so if you can't afford it or you don't believe in it, that's fine. But if you want access, if you want things like being able to get on the field experience with a student athlete or be able to participate in a fantasy camp, you have to pay, right? Just like any product, you're going to have to pay for that. The second thing is you might have a budget for Oklahoma, meaning I have to pay for season tickets. I want to do this. I want to do that. This is my entertainment budget. And if I can't, give to the university, so you have to make a decision, as you should, on how you spend your money. And you may make a decision to say, hey, maybe my $100 a year is better spent giving to Crimson and Cream for NIL than it is just donating to the university. One of the benefits that I would say as it relates to that, and Joe C and the school may get mad at me for saying this, is when you give to the university, it goes into the air, right? Like you don't get anything back for it. Maybe you get a pat on the back. When you give to us, you're actually going to get something, right? So to me, in reality, I would say we're a better return on your money. Like I would rather get a free bobblehead from Crimson and Cream and know my $100 went to supporting a student athlete than it did just going to the school potentially, right? And that's there's a dichotomy right now with schools having to decide, hey, we're probably going to have to take less money in from donations and other things because we're going to need it to go to the collective. One of the last things that I will also say is that, and some people may be familiar with the fact that the Green Bay Packers are a publicly owned team, right? Their fans own the franchise. And that is essentially what Crimson and Cream is sort of helping fans do at Oklahoma. You can sort of own a piece of the football team. If you give $100 to Crimson and Cream for football, that money is going to the football team. It is going directly to the student athletes. And so you get to be an owner. And just like the Green Bay Packers, your share certificate isn't really worth anything, but you are an owner, right? Like that is a chance to own a piece of stock. Just like, you may own some stock in Apple or Tesla. Like you get to make decisions on the company? No, but you get a piece of that. And when you're sitting there on a Saturday watching the game, I'm in some small way making that happen. You couldn't do that before, right? That's not really what happened. Yes, you can build a shiny locker room and whatever else. This is a little bit of a different scenario, and it's only going to increase. And if I know that, hey, that athlete who sort of works for me now gets to sign an autograph for my son, that's great, right? Like I would do it. And I play football at Rutgers, and we work with Rutgers, and I support the Rutgers collective because I want to have ownership of that, right? Like I want to be part of that ecosystem.
Talking with Jason Belzer, one of the he's the CEO of the Crimson and Cream Collective. He's making this thing happen. If I can go back just to the campaign that you guys launched, I thought it was brilliant the way that you did this. And I know you shared a little bit about it, Jason, that it starts because you've got obviously a donor that has a vision for helping this thing out. Now, we've also mentioned it can't just be rich donors, right? It can't just be wealthy donors that make this thing go, but just the actual campaign itself. I thought it was so brilliant for you guys to get this Crimson and Cream Collective on the map. And I think for a lot of people, probably that is what got the Crimson and Cream Collective on the map and on the front of people's minds. So for those that maybe are unaware, they launched a campaign to try and generate $3 million in 30 days. So just take everybody through. I know you shared a little bit, Jason, about it, but how did all of that come together? And then again, like I said, I think it's brilliant. So what was sort of the brainchilding of this campaign?
Yeah, I mean, so again, we have and are actively soliciting large contributions and donors. And we had one donor that said, same kind of skepticism, like, hey, I want to support, and I obviously have the financial means to do it, but I also want to make sure that the rest of the Sooner community understands that they're as important as somebody like myself. And so the only way I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, is by making sure that others are going to do the same. And so we said, well, fine, what are you willing to put up? And he said, I'll put up $1.5 million if you can get that matched. And so we said, all right, let's go build a campaign around that. And so we launched this campaign. We have over 100 student athletes at the university participating. So if you go on our Instagram page, our Twitter accounts, you'll see student athletes posting things and doing that. And so we are building this campaign. We're 3 days in. We've raised over $400,000. We have a long way to go. I can tell you that you will start seeing in the next couple of days some very famous Oklahoma Sooners that are playing in professional leagues that are going to start jumping in. We have the whole university behind this, and they realize the importance of it. It's, you know, if Oklahoma sports are not successful, the university is not going to be as successful, right? One of the reasons why OU is because of this, and this is the brand, right? This is based on sports. And so, you know, this donor is willing to do that, and we need a few thousand other people to come in and say, hey, you know, maybe I can't put in $1.5 million, but I sure can put in $25 a month, and it's reasonable, and I get something for it, and that's great.
Jason, why all sports? This probably gets into a little bit of just the mission statement, if you will, of the Crimson and Cream Collective, but I wanted to drill down on that. Why all sports? Why not just football or just basketball? Why all Oklahoma sports?
I mean, why does Title IX exist, right? Like, why do we – I think Oklahoma is proud about every sport that they have on this campus. And, you know, the softball program, the gymnastics program, the basketball program. I mean, there's so much tradition behind them. We want to support everybody. And, you know, we have a policy, just as an example, and the university knows this, that if we host an event where we're hiring a male student athlete to participate in something, we always have to have a female student athlete as well. Now, compensation is always dependent on fair market value. So we've had scenarios at schools where we've had certain female student athletes do things where they're making more than their male counterparts because that female student athlete has 1 million fans on Instagram. And so when she posts about an event, she gets a lot more people to come out to it than a male. But that's our policy. And we told the university, if you don't like that, then we're probably not the ones that you want working with your alumni. But I think they appreciate that. And the reality is that you know, softball going to go raise $3 million? No. But in order for softball to continue to be competitive, they probably have to raise $500,000 to $1 million potentially, because there are programs out there right now that are saying, hey, you come here and we'll get you $25,000 a year per student athlete. And yes, you want to come play for Coach Gasso, you want to play in this ecosystem. But if you can go play at Texas and get $25,000 versus OU and get nothing, if that's my daughter, I don't know what I'm telling her. I'm saying, hey, you can go make $100,000. That's a lot of money to get you started in life, especially in a situation where you're not going to have a professional career after, probably from the sport. So we have to do it, and the fans get to decide, right? Like, at the end of the day, you can look at the numbers. We've been transparent. 98% of the contributions have come in for football. But it doesn't mean that we've had some pretty big contributors behind the scenes come in and put some money in for women's sports because they want to maintain that competitiveness.
Just a couple of more. Jason, really appreciate your time. Thanks for educating, enlightening us on the Crimson and Cream Collective. I'm just curious for you individually, why Oklahoma, right? I know that this isn't the only program nationally, but why OU? What was attractive about the University of Oklahoma for you?
The biggest thing is that their tradition, and the fact is that they want to win, and the community is so behind them. And I hate to rag on my alma mater, but Rutgers has always had a very rocky history of support, right? Their fans are fickle. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in this area that, you know, distracts people. You don't have to go to a Rutgers game. You can go to a Jets or a Giants game or whatever that is. And when we look back in 10 years at the programs that survived the NIL era, they're going to be the ones that have that tradition and loyalty. Oklahoma is not going anywhere, right? They're going to be around. But, and I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, but if Oklahoma fan base does not get behind NIL quickly, there is a chance that maybe they'll survive, but they're not going to be the same Oklahoma that everybody has known for the last 20 years. And that's a scary proposition. And so we have to rally, right? And we're doing that. We're getting there. We're making great progress. There's a lot of ground to make up right now, but we're confident that with us leading the charge, if anybody can do it, it's going to be OU.
Just two more here, if I may. I mean, obviously we know the subscription that you can sign up for at the Crimson and Cream Collective. I like some of the gear though too. I mean, I'm sort of a dork for that kind of stuff. You could see some of the memorabilia and things behind me. Like, I think the Crimson and Cream coffee mug's cool. I'm a coffee drinker, so that's something that I'd be happy to spend $20 on and know that it goes to support OU athletics. Again,
100%
you know, some of the hoodies and
of the profits from those, anything that you buy on the site goes back to the kids. We don't take $1 from that. So there's whatever they're marked up, you know, X dollars, and whatever we make literally goes right back into the bucket, all sports, to support student athletes. And that's great, right? There's so many ways to do it. And again, you know, from individuals that may be listening to this that want to get involved in a bigger way, you can call us right now and you can say, I want to give $1,000. I want it to go to this specific student athlete. I want it to be used for this specific purpose. I want you to go find athletes that are going to go to the soup kitchen in my hometown and work there on the weekend. We'll do that, right? Like, you can do whatever. That's what NIL is. Here's $1,000. I want a softball player to come over to my house and teach my daughters how to, you know, hit a ball, right? We can do that for you. That's what Crimson and Cream. And I promise you, and we'll talk more about it, we're coming out with something that the OU community is going to love. And it's thanks to somebody that came forward and said, hey, I want to do this, and let's go create a really cool opportunity for a student athlete. I'm telling you, it's going to be the biggest thing in NIL. In 2 weeks, everyone's going to see it across the country, and they're going to love it. But that's the point, right? Like, Sooner fans have an opportunity to support Sooner student athletes and do it however they want, and we're here to facilitate that process.
Boy, that is that's called dropping a tease, my friend, right there. That is masterful what you just did. I've just got the one final question, and you probably have answered this to some degree already, Jason, but I know sometimes there can be some misunderstandings out there about name, image, and likeness. What do you just want to, in a final closing manner here, share with Oklahoma fans? Any misunderstandings that they may have about the Crimson and Cream Collective?
Yeah, we're not about, so, and I've seen this on social media. People are like, well, how much are you paying for this recruit? And we don't get involved in that. And I can tell you, I had somebody call me yesterday. They were a lawyer. They represent 2 recruits from Oklahoma, student athletes, prospective student athletes. They saw our campaign and they said, oh boy, let's give them a call and see what they may offer. And I politely said, that's not what we do. We don't have those types of conversations. So we are a fiduciary, and we are an ambassador to the university in a lot of ways. And so I want to make sure that anyone that gives $1, $1 million to the collective knows that we value their money, and we are doing what we promise, and we are being as 100% transparent in that process as we can, just as a university is, right? University has to say, this is what we're paying our coaches, this is what we're doing, because, you know, they're a publicly funded entity. And while we're not a publicly funded entity, we act like one.
Jason, you're awesome. It's so exciting, I think, for Oklahoma fans, what you and this collective are doing for the University of Oklahoma. So on behalf of fellow Oklahoma alums, I'll just say, hey, thank you for your hard work. I can't wait to see what this Crimson and Cream collective, you've dropped some teases today, so I can't wait to see what happens in a couple of weeks.
There's some fun stuff coming, I promise. So,
but hey, thank you, Jason, and look forward to chatting with you again down the road.
Awesome. Thank you for having me again.